You're listening to Story Struck. I'm Rachel, an editor and writing coach.
And I'm Nino, a ghostwriter and book coach. Welcome to our curious community where we dive into everything books and writing.
Now, let's get into the episode. Today on the podcast, we have Krysta Pae, who is the author of Master of Fine Hearts, which comes out next week, August 18th. We are so excited. I'm super stoked because I got to read an ARC copy and I am loving it. Krysta, please introduce yourself to our audience and tell them a little bit about your journey to becoming a writer.
Hi, I'm Krysta, obviously. I started writing when I was super young. I really think it's the thing I've had the longest in my life. I feel like my name is the only thing I've had longer than writing. So I knew that when I wanted to take the leap and to try my hand at fiction, if this was my only shot at writing a novel, I wanted to include Hawaiian representation because I'm Native Hawaiian. I was born and raised on the island of Oahu, and I did so in my favorite subgenre, which is college romance, which is how we got Masters of Fine Hearts, about two fine arts students getting their master's degrees. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cringe, but I'm obsessed. So we're keeping it.
It is beautiful. I love like cozy mystery. So like a good pun and play on words just delights me to no end. And I think that the romance readers will as well. So I know that this is like kind of that college age, coming of age story. So what is is this a sweet romance or what is the kind of the spice level in your novel?
So I don't know if I'm kind of telling on myself here. Personally, I thought it was like pretty like surface level. There is spice and it is open door, so it is described, but in my head I was like, okay, I'm going like super easy, super chill, nothing too crazy. And then ARCs went out and people were like, this is the smut and this is insane, and I was like, is it really?
Is it because like you use like anatomically correct like things instead of saying my opening, you said vagina or something? Like,
Well, I definitely
next level.
Okay, my parents, if you're watching this, please feel free to skip. So I definitely used like the words, like I used like pussy, dick, all of those things. But it's just for me things where it's like a metaphor, like the cavern of blah blah. I'm like, it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
So I was just straightforward and I just used the words. I don't know if that's what it was or if it's because Grant, who's the main character, he has a bit of a mouth, I guess, on him, and he says some crazy. Like they were that crazy, but
you are a riot. So yeah, I think it would depend on which folks you're sending it to. So like I could see if you send this to people who you were thinking this is more sweet romance, like they're definitely like, even for them, sometimes having like kissing on the page is considered a little like that's pretty much the spice level for sweet romance. So if that's the folks you were looking for your betas, that might have been why you were getting that response.
You know what it is? I didn't think of it like that way. I was just kind of like, this has smut, letting everybody know if you're not comfortable with that, that's okay. So when I sent out ARCs in my head, I was expecting like maybe like here and there, but no, a lot of the people are just like, wow, this
interesting.
I know, and it was so awkward because I told my friend that Grant was like the soft vanilla one.
Now you're like,
she's like, the second one's gonna be insane, and I was like, it's really not. It's not.
Oh my god. So this is great for you though for your marketing because now you know how to position it, and I think that's great for writers to think about is the feedback that you get from betas and from your ARCs. That is marketing gold for you to be able to use that and position your book during like for the phase for this one, and then like as you move forward for your next book, like you also know the benchmark of like what readers liked and where they wanted it, and so you can kind of roll with that for your next one in the series.
Exactly, that's what I'm keeping in mind because I'm writing the second book right now. Yep.
Oh, exciting.
Thank you.
How long did you wait to jump into the second one from the time that you like wrapped up the first one to when you jumped into starting the second one?
Okay, sorry, I cut out for a second. Can you repeat the first half of that?
Yeah, sorry. It may have been my Wi-Fi. Who knows? How long did you wait? So like before, like, did you finish all editing of the first one before you dove into the second one, or were you like kind of overlapping?
So Tears of Fine Hearts took me longer than I thought it was going to take me. I think collectively I probably have 15 to 20 drafts of this specific book because I changed so much. The amount of things I changed, but at one point I was really in a rut and I was just like, I don't want to write this anymore. Like the story isn't falling into place the way I thought it would. But the second book's main couple is my favorite couple. So the only thing that drove me at that point was I have to finish this one to get to the second. So as soon as I was done with draft one, and you know how they say, like, once you're done with the draft, leave it alone and then come back to it in a few weeks. That's what I was doing during the few weeks. I was writing book 2.
I love it.
Like the second I finished mine, I was like ready for number 2, but I'm like, let me just like, edit this one first, maybe.
Yeah, when I got the edits back from my editor, I was like, okay, book 2 can wait. So from the editing time period, I didn't touch book 2 at all. But as soon as I sent ARCs out and I finished the final copy edit after that, it was immediately into book 2. So that's what I've been doing.
And yeah, that first one takes the longest. Like you are just like getting in the motions, you're, kind of finding your voice, your style, all of those things, and really honing your craft. And subsequent books definitely go smoother. We are still going to have those moments where like, I cannot look at the stinking draft one more time. I am going to scream. Definitely, we all have those moments still. But the process, I feel, definitely gets easier as you go along, which is nice, especially if you're writing in the same world. Then you're not having to do as much legwork as you did in the first one. So like all of us are writing series. So it sounds like your series though, is it following different characters then at the same school?
Yeah, it's a interconnected standalone series. Okay. So every book is somebody else from the friend group, but they're all set.
I love it. It makes me think of Heather Graham is one of my favorite romance authors, and she has the Crew of Hunter series, and I think there's like 20 something books in it or something like that. And yeah, and it's crazy. And so it follows like different people within like the crew. It's a paranormal investigation, people that are in like the FBI and the police and all these things. And so it follows along. And so it's cool because you still get to see some of your favorite characters that were the couples in one of the other books, like get pop in smaller roles. And then you get to see the experiences with some of the other characters in it. It's so much fun.
Yeah, that's my favorite part about interconnected standalones. I can't let them go. I'm attached.
I read a whole lot of romance because a lot of it is straight. And I found that in my queer journey, I don't like that so much. And I'm like, oh, I thought I just wasn't romantic. No, it turns out I'm gay. So like the one romance that I did read that I really liked was whatever the Delilah Green one is. I can't remember. Something Delilah Green.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it's the same type with where, it's like the friend group and you go to each one and stuff. And the second one was my favorite of that because one of the characters was real relatable because she was a late in life lesbian. So I had a thought process on this. I promise I did. There it is. I found it. So like had I had a book like that came across when I was younger, it probably would have woken me the fuck up a little earlier than I did and stuff. And you were talking about how important this representation was for you and how this would have been such a great book for you. So can you talk a little bit about like the representation and what it means to be the creator of this representation that wasn't around whenever you were growing up?
Oh my gosh, my heart. I've never heard anybody put it into like that sort of framing before. Yeah, I will admit that growing up, it wasn't that I didn't like being Hawaiian. I always loved being Hawaiian, but I always felt kind of like separated in a way. And I will put a lot of that on media and the fact that it's, even to this day, I feel like it's so hard to find real, true Hawaiian representation in the media. Like Lilo and Stitch, I hung on to for as long as I possibly could. And by that, I mean to this day, I have a Stitch right there. But that was pretty much all I had growing up. And anytime I got anything, like the setting was Hawaiian, or Hawaii, they mentioned something Hawaiian, somebody said a Hawaiian word, like that's what I clung to. So I think that not having that growing up made me shift my perspective to, it's really hard because I don't want to say I didn't want to be Hawaiian because it's not that, but I always looked at everything else through a not Hawaiian lens, if that makes
Well,
sense.
white supremacy and all.
I didn't want to say I was like internally whitewashing myself, but in a way, I think that's what it ended up being. So when I got a chance, like when I finally felt the motivation within myself to write a book, no matter what it was going to be, how short, how long, anything at all, any genre, I was like, the first character is going to be Hawaiian. Because if this is my one shot, that's what I want it to be. I want to be somebody who puts a Hawaiian representation into the media. And I think if I had that when I was younger, and if I just had just one strong Hawaiian character who was not a gimmick, it wasn't for laughs, it wasn't for jokes, it wasn't like a tourist sort of thing or like a vacation sort of thing. If I just had that, I think it would have totally changed my perspective on life in like immensely. I'm happy to say that I don't internally whitewash myself anymore, but that was something I had to learn on my own and I had to fix within myself, and I didn't really get any help from the media, as we know.
That is
Yeah.
so beautiful and powerful. And I really loved when, like, I was reading your book, and in the beginning of it, you have the author's note about including pigeon in there. So I lived in Hawaii for 9 years. So when I saw that, I was delighted. I'm like, oh my God, like I remember all of that. And I could just think of like, oh no, and poo-poos and house it and like all of these things, and just flooded back all of these beautiful memories. And I thought it was wonderful that people are going to get to experience that culture that not a lot of people get to experience who aren't from there. And it's, also you're getting that lived experience of Liliana and not that, like you said, like the tourist experience, like it's her lived experience as a Hawaiian woman. And I just thought it was so beautifully done. And it just delighted me that people are going to get to experience that culture that I was so lucky to get to experience for the years I lived there.
Also, something I really love about Liliana, and this was a conscious choice, is that she is Native Hawaiian, but she herself is not from Hawaii. She was born and raised on the mainland. And I use that as a crutch to kind of introduce that her character art relies a lot on the fact that her parents were priced out of the islands, which is very true for a lot of Native Hawaiians. But also, I saw that as a way of so many people who I know are going to pick up this book and don't know anything about the local Hawaiian culture. They don't know anything about pigeon. They don't know anything about how much of a culture shock it'll be, like from being local Hawaiian to being Hawaiian here on the mainland. So I felt like she kind of like had a foot on both sides. And she, in a way, would be kind of like a connecting point in that way. She's very special to me. I hold her very close to my heart.
That's so beautiful that she's like this bridge, because like, I always love learning and exploring with different cultures and stuff, but as respectfully as I can. So, when you're an ethical white person, you have to be very mindful about it, because there's so much beautiful, rich culture in so many places that we don't have as much access to because of colonization. So when you're reading a character like this, and she's like kind of feeling this journey out herself, but she's a little closer to it than you are, you get to really explore it with her and discover it with her, which, as somebody who's way outside of it, is a really exciting experience. Because let's be honest, the majority of us are not about to be able to go to Hawaii and connect with Native Hawaiians in a deep way because of our society and what we've done. So it's really amazing to have these things, which is the power of story in connecting to cultures that we may not have otherwise been able to connect with, or at least not on a deeper level. And having people who are within those cultures being the writers of this work is so vital. Those are my feelings, and I said them.
Well, this is so rewarding, just hearing people say these things about, obviously, like not even just my work, but my culture and representation of it.
Yes. Yeah, it's just the culture there is so warm and welcoming. So I will date myself. I moved there the summer the original Lilo and Stitch came out, and that's when I originally got married. And so I moved there, and the locals that I worked with were just so sweet. My husband at the time was military and went on multiple deployments, and they essentially like adopted me when he was gone, and it just was so lovely. And I just had such a good time being able to connect with them and just with that extended family vibe that they had there. It was like, oh, I will treasure those memories forever. So I know that everybody's drawn to writing like different age groups, different life experiences and things like that. So I know that this one is that new adult age. And I would love to know kind of what drew you to writing for that age group versus writing more of, someone late 30s or in their 30s or older, kind of what drew you to that age group of the college age, like the early 20s?
A few factors, one of them being that college romance is my favorite subgenre of romance. Any college romance, I will eat it up every time. So that's one of them. The second one is I feel a bit more connected to that age because I'm closer to that age. I'm no longer 24, unfortunately, but I'm I have friends who are in that age group. Like, I think a lot of my media also falls into that audience. So
Mm-hmm.
connecting to how that mindset would be, especially like specifically in this time period, was easier for me to write and felt more connected to me. And then the third one, this is like a lore drop. So originally I was writing a different romance book, and that was going to be my debut romance, but I just hit a huge wall. I couldn't think of anything I outlined or plotted or wrote, I absolutely hated. So my solution at the time was to get a creative writing degree, like a master's creative writing degree, because I have my bachelor's in journalism, but I was like, it's because I did journalistic writing. That's why I don't know what to do. I looked up master's degrees in creative writing and I like presented it to my friends. I was super excited. I was like, guys, I'm going to do this. And they're like, that's crazy. With what money? And I was like, oh, great point. So my friends very kindly told me to pivot. And the pivoting was I came up with a storyline for a girl getting her creative writing master's degree while she's in a rut for her story.
Oh my
Right
God,
from
that's awesome.
I was going to ask if you had gone because I knew you had the journalism degree. I'm like, I'm not sure I can do that. That is perfect because you got to live vicariously through your character and like feel the experiences and feelings that she was feeling. Now everything makes like even like more connections of her having that creative block in there. And I'm like, very cool. And you were able to bring that across so realistically because you were literally living that experience and that frustration that she had. So that is like such a fun little like Easter egg thing. I love it.
Yeah, also I have this thing where research, I guess it's just my journalism background. I research everything, like everything. If I get stuck on a topic, I'm researching nonstop. So I probably did like a whole week researching every creative writing master's program in the country. And like the classes, how long it takes, like preparation, dorm life, everything. So when I decided I'm not going to do it, I was like, well, that was a waste. Like that was a whole week of research. But then when I decided to write Liliana, I was like, okay, so she's going to be in this program and these are her classes and this is her schedule. So it was also a way for me not to have wasted a week of my time.
Oh my gosh, how freaking perfect is that? Because like honestly, sometimes we like as writers, we need to have those moments where we like step away and we think that like by going on this like side quest, we're like not being productive with our writing, but it's always productive. Like space, having peace, having like nothing to do is sometimes the most productive writing time you can possibly have. And so it's such a great reminder for us writers out there who have a tendency to fall into overworking mode. Not naming any names.
I don't know who you're talking about here. I don't know. And I think it's wonderful too that you were okay with setting that original idea aside and you weren't like trying to force yourself through it. And I just recently talked at a summit and we were talking about, making sure that your idea has, steam, that it can carry through to a whole novel. But the other important part is making sure that it excites you and it lights you up. Because if it doesn't, you're going to have like that, you're just not going to want to sit and write. You're just going to, and if you do like push through it, it's going to come through when you're writing. And then you're going to have to live with that book through editing, through publishing, and after publishing, you're going to live with that book for a very long time. So, for writers to know that it's okay, that even if you have invested and you have 50,000 words into that book, I don't care. If it's not the one, it's not the one. That's fine. Stop, look again, restart. And you may find your idea takes you in a different direction. I know, like Nino and I, we both had that experience with our books, right? Like mine was going to be a cozy mystery. Now it's a dark romantasy that's like a 5-book arc. Like, it's definitely not that anymore. And I am cool with it and I rolled with it. And I always thought I was going to be the cozy mystery author. And I'm like, nope, I am doing dark fantasy and that is my realm. So I will live there.
I love that for you.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important too, like you have to follow the story and remembering as writers that we're essentially the conduit for the story. Like, yes, these are extensions of ourselves. We put ourselves into certain characters, if not in part all of our characters, but like the stories are like coming through us. Like, I don't know. I always feel like it's coming through. You have to follow the story and stuff. You have to let the story lead instead of, being super in control of it. It has to be a good balance, I guess, between it, because I know, researcher, like plotter, you guys are like, maybe a little bit more in control than me, who's like just chaos writing. But I just think it's important to at least have a balance of following the story. I wanted to ask, so as you know, I was not a big romance reader. However, I do love me some fantasy, and fantasy has gotten so much more romantic, and romantasy is such a freaking big thing. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on why you think romance is seeping into everything else right now, because I have a theory, and I want to know if you have one too.
Okay, I will preface this by saying I actually don't really read fantasy, which I know is crazy in this day and age of Bookstagram and book talk. But all my friends read fantasy, so I will pull my knowledge from them. I don't know if I have a friend, so maybe I'm going to use her as a reference. I have a friend and she cannot read any story without a romantic plot in any sense. It doesn't have to be the main plot, but like there has to be and it doesn't have to be straight, doesn't have to be between just two people, but there has to be something. And maybe it's because so many people can connect to the feeling of love, or maybe it's because so many people see themselves in the feeling of love. I would like to say that love, there's like two emotions that I think everyone is like very familiar with in some capacity, and it's love and hate, right? And not even just romantic love, but platonic love as well. And although platonic and romantic love aren't the same thing, a lot of the things parallel each other, like those like feelings of like comfortability and vulnerability and stuff like that. So maybe that's what it is. If people are just searching to connect that way through all their favorite books, I'm not totally sure, but I personally can read a book without a romance. I just think it's more fun.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, I think my theory is that because dating, it has become so disconnected. Social media, like so much of like where we live in a world that is more connected than ever before. And yet as people, we are more disconnected than we've ever been. And so I think, given how humans fall into story, how we live vicariously through these characters, because we have this loneliness epidemic and because dating is so ridiculous now, spoken like a true like single spinster, that people are now craving romance more than ever, because this is how we can get that beautiful, tender, loving, or spicy romance. Whereas it's very hard to get anything decent in the real world now, right? Everything is so superficial. Nobody wants those deep connections. We're so separated. Everything's so separated. Like, oh, well, we were on a Zoom call, so we know each other real deep and stuff like that, or whatever. But it's we're not, we don't have like, one of the things with like the forced proximity in a romance, right? There's so little forced proximity because so much of everything is online now. And so that's my theory of why romance is seeping into other genres more than ever before. So
I think you're officially the psychologist of the podcast now. I wholeheartedly agree. I think both of you brought up these beautiful points, and we do, right? As humans, we crave that connection. And you're right now, like as a society, we even like when we go out and like I'll see couples sitting at a table together and they're not even talking, like they're both on their phones. So even though they're in the presence of each other, they are disconnected from each other. And like kind of as we talked about in the podcast before, fiction is so powerful. So like being able to read a novel like yours, Krysta, like we get to live vicariously through Liliana and, get to imagine that rush of new love, that push and pull. Like we've all experienced these things before. And getting to read a book like that, we get to relive those experiences. And it can just be like exciting, engaging. And that may be also maybe the little lift you need in your personal life to jazz up your life with your partner, right? Like, it's all fun. Like, come on, be more like Grant, babe. Like, let's go.
I also think like, well, this is how I approach things, but I feel like with so many people writing men in a way where they're not horrible, feel people are probably craving more of that because it's so hard to find in real life.
Yeah.
So like Grant, I have gotten so many messages from early readers that are like, oh my gosh, like he's like a walking green flag. I've never like heard of a man who was like so soft and patient. And I was like, yeah, this is why I've been single for so long, guys. Why am I going to subject myself to be in real life with a man who pretends to respect me when I can just write one who is like the greatest man to ever walk this earth?
I love it. That's good.
I have a queer 2 cents about this, okay? Because yes, I have heard this from straight and bi women a lot, talking about how like they love like men written by women, that they want to find a man written by a woman in real life, basically, right? Okay, so queer hack, go find yourself a trans man. They are wonderful. They understand your experience because they've been there before, but they are these incredible men that will treat you right. So to all of the bi girlies, to all of the straight girlies, go find yourself a trans man and you've basically found your storybook romance. So FYI.
I'm behind that. I love that.
I like that. I like it.
Yeah. So, but I think you're right. I think, like we see a lot also, like it's not even just our experiences, because like with, oh, well, it's just that one guy, right? It's just, oh, it's just, he was just a jerk, or you gaslight yourself out of it in relationships with men and stuff, right? But now everyone's got a platform. Now we can see the collection of garbage that there is in the dating pool with men. And so that, like, when we have these storybooks when we have these romance characters that are like kind and gentle and emotionally intelligent, it's just like, then we look at what's out in the world and all of a sudden we've got standards that we didn't have before. And so it honestly, I think Book Talk probably played a bit of a role in why there's a lot of millennial women who are like, I'd rather be single than be with a man, because now we have standards as a generation more than we ever had before. And I think the Gen Zs are feeling a lot the same way. And it's just like, guys, you either die single or you start reading some romance and start getting some tips on how to be a decent person.
Those are the 2 options.
Those are your 2 options. Read a book.
And I love
it's hard.
I agree, as the twice divorced woman in the group. I love how you also wrote Grant, like as you said, your ARC readers and beta readers said like he had all the green flags, because we do see a lot in fiction and movies, like a very toxic man, and the toxic man ending up the girl likes him and being with that. And as someone who's been in some very toxic things, like to me, that's a red flag for the reader. And that makes me scared that someone's going to read that and idolize that kind of man and be like, oh, but look at the beautiful happy ending that they got. Like, I can change him, I can do this, and things like that. And so, as a psychologist, that just it makes me cringe a little. Like, I'm not saying you never can have fun with like those kinds of bad boy characters and things like that, but I feel like in a lot of books that we're seeing now, we are seeing very toxic relationships that I just don't want younger people to like that jade them. So it was very refreshing to see a character like Grant who like restores my faith in men. And I'm like, Grant, I adore you. Like, you're so special. So thank you for doing a character like that.
Yeah. Like whenever we're looking at like when we're writing as authors, we do need to be very mindful about what we're putting out there, right? Because now you have Grant out there, and so someone's gonna read Grant in college or maybe high school and stuff, and they're gonna be like, oh, I want to find a Grant in my life. When I was growing up, we had Edward Cullen, like. And so we're looking for this like basic psychopath, because let's shrink that man for a minute. He was not okay. And so like then all of my whole generation was like, I'm going to find myself an Edward Cullen who wants to possess me like a product. Like,
And
you know,
the worst thing is your other option is Jacob.
yeah.
Whoa,
Who started off decent, but then got real psycho because she probably looked at that and be like, oh, everyone's going to want to pick Jacob because he's the one who's balanced. So let's make him psycho too. So that way her options are psycho or psycho. And so, you know, like it's so important because then, you know, like you can have those standards, you see it, because it's so important for us to actually see things in our media, in our stories, in our fiction. We have to see what's possible in order to like build that path for ourselves, you know? So I think that it's our responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility, as Spider-Man said. And it's so vital for us as authors to make sure that when we have those like maybe bad boy characters, it's maybe because he's like a little sassy, you know, it's not because he's like a narcissist or like abusive, you know, that he's actually just like, oh, he just, you know, it's just a little banter that they do, you know, not that he's a bad person that she's glorifying, you know, in order to win the prize of having the man.
I think that's another thing too, is that you can find a balance. Also, sorry, can I just let me close my window? The sun is not agreeing with me.
Yeah, go for it.
It got mad at the Edward Cullen comment, I guess. The top light it is. But I think there is a total possibility for a balance. I do have, this is a bit of a teaser, I guess, but I have a second series already planned out, like totally fleshed out. And the second guy, because I did realize in every single one of my books so far, I have planned them all to be very soft, kind-hearted men. And I was like, okay, wait, I gotta spice it up somehow. So one of the main guys in my second series, he is a jerk, all things considered, but in my opinion, not in a way to where he's like really bashing a person down. It's just like I think there's a difference between platforming like somebody's ego, and you can do so by raising that ego, even if it's not right, and not necessarily knocking somebody else down. Yeah, so that's my goal with my one bad boy.
I love it. And yeah, because we do like bad boys, and you know, it's fun to have a bad boy. I love the bad boy stuff. But like you said, you want to maintain that balance and not have it be that they're just so toxic that it's actually abusive and really negative, right? And we're like, even like we're talking about like sometimes villains and stories, like we want to have them very fleshed out, a three-dimensional character, so you can understand the reasons behind their actions. And I have a feeling with yours, like we're going to understand the reason behind why he is how he is, and we're going to see a transformation in him as the story goes on. So
I have a great example of this kind of character where he's a bad boy, but he's not a bad boy. Okay, it recently released. It's a romantasy, Shield of Sparrows, and the main character in that, like, it's a reputation of him being this bad guy, right? Which is a misinformed story, you know, that has kind of like percolated, you know, how like retellings, right? You know, like, so like propaganda played a role, you know, and then the way he banters has the bad boy thing, but his actions are always aligned with a good and ethical person. And so I think that that is a fantastic example of having a bad boy written, so we still get that fun element of the bad boy without him actually being something that's toxic for the readers to read, you know. So yeah, that's a great book to go off of, and yours will be wonderful because I just know it will be. So
That's awesome. Well, I know we're getting close on time here, Krysta. So do you have any final words to wrap us up? And can you tell the people where they can find you and your wonderful book?
Oh my gosh, what should I say for my final words? Is this where I should start like rapid marketing?
Yeah, this is shameless plugs. Anything that you want to say, final thoughts, and then shamelessly plug yourself away.
Okay. I'll say that Masters of Fine Hearts was definitely a labor of love, and I feel like it really did heal something in me. And I expected and I hoped that a lot of people would come to me mentioning the Hawaiian representation and saying how happy they are to see that. But I've also gotten so many people who aren't Hawaiian just saying that they saw themselves so deeply in Liliana's character as well as Grant's character. So I truly think that this book has something for everybody. All the romance readers out there, you might not necessarily love every character and every decision, but I think you'll be able to see yourself in at least one character, one decision, one scene, somehow, some way. As for where to find me on social media, you can find me at Krysta Pae Author. That's KrystaPae Author. That's on Threads, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also visit my website, which is KrystaPae.com. And you can find my book on all major retailer websites. Make sure to request it at your local library, and as well as Kindle Unlimited.
amazing. We will have all of those details linked in the show notes, and all of our clips from the podcast will also be tagging Krysta. So be sure to go follow her, go get her book, and go have like some nice cozy romantic reading time, or spicy romantic reading time. I guess it just depends on what your standards of spice levels are.
Yeah.
All right. And thank you for listening. Check out the show notes for details and links from the episode. And don't forget to subscribe and follow for more. Special thanks to our composer, Micah Silverstein. Enjoy the rest of the music.